My name is Morgan. I booked the room, prepaid the custom dinner, confirmed every RSVP. I even added the vegan entree for Addison because she always had a new phase. But when I showed up at 6:58 p.m., the only thing waiting was the echo of silverware in someone else's celebration. No hugs, no laughs, just a waitress adjusting her apron who looked up as I approached and said, "Oh, the Delaney dinner, that was last night." At first, I thought I misheard her. I pulled my phone from my clutch, scrolled back to the last group message. It was still there. Friday, Sterling Grill, 7 p.m. I hadn't imagined it. My fingers moved quickly. I even checked my email confirmation with the manager. Same date, same time. And yet here I stood, in heels that pinched, and a navy wrap dress I had picked carefully, alone. The waitress must have seen the confusion on my face. She softened. "They said it was a lovely gathering. Your mom mentioned you were traveling." Traveling. I hadn't left Asheville in months. I stepped away from the hostess stand and leaned against the wood-paneled wall near the bar. The room smelled like rosemary butter and old money. The buzz of happy diners filled the air. None of them were my family. With shaky fingers, I called my mom. "Sweetheart," she answered, voice too sweet, like a spoonful of syrup hiding salt. "Everything okay?" I skipped the preamble. "Where is everyone?" A pause, then laughter. "Oh, honey, that was last night. We thought you got busy again. Addison said you've been under a lot of pressure lately." "I'm looking at the message, Mom. It says Friday." "Well," she said, a tinge of defensiveness slipping in. "Plans changed. Addison made the reservation. I assumed you two talked. I hadn't heard from Addison in over a week. I paid for this, Mom." "I know, and it was beautiful. Everyone said it was the nicest one yet. There's some cake left. We saved you a slice." She hung up before I could say another word. I didn't cry. Not there. I walked out of the restaurant and handed the valet my ticket in silence. When my car pulled up, I got in, shut the door, and just sat there, not moving, not speaking. The heater hummed against the night chill. Downtown lights blinked past the windshield, but I wasn't seeing any of it. It wasn't just a dinner. It was an erasure. When I got home, I didn't bother to take off my heels. I walked straight into my home office, opened my laptop, and pulled up my banking app. The restaurant charge was still pending. $1,620. Deposit, full prepay, 16 guests, custom wine pairings, dessert tower, vegan entree for Addison. Every detail accounted for, except me. That night, instead of sleeping, I started a document. Title: Unpaid Debts. Under it, I began to list Addison's rent, March 2022, $940 vet bill for mom's dog. December 2021, $330. Colby's tire replacement, June 2020, $580. Grandma's home nurse copay, July 2019, $1,200. Sterling Grill dinner, this week, $1,620. That was just the start. The total climbed quickly. And not just in dollars. The emotional math was worse. Every favor wrapped in a compliment. Every gift recast as an expectation. Every boundary treated like a threat. Around midnight, I clicked over to my credit report. I hadn't checked it in months. I live pretty clean. No big purchases, no debts, no reckless decisions. At least, that's what I thought. Then I saw it. A new account under my name. Opened 6 weeks ago. A furniture store. $2,780 charged for a Delaney Signature Collection bedroom set. Billing address, my parents' house. Shipping address, Addison's. I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I opened another browser tab and searched. Report identity theft by a family member. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a timeline. The next morning, I brewed coffee and stood at my kitchen island, reading the last few text messages between me and Addison. Most of them were one-sided. Me checking in, me confirming something, me asking if she still needed help, covering rent while she switched jobs. None of them answered. I scrolled further back and found an old thread. 3 months ago, I'd sent her a picture of a new bookshelf I bought. She replied, "Cute. Wish I could afford furniture that nice." Apparently, now she could. I closed the app and opened my front door. The morning air was crisp, the kind that bites just a little, but still carries the scent of pine and smoke from someone else's fireplace. I stood there for a minute, barefoot on the concrete, letting the cold center me. Then I walked back inside, sat down, and added another line to my document. They didn't forget me, they excluded me. Have you ever felt erased by your own family, like you were funding the party but not invited? The silence after the dinner wasn't accidental. It was curated. No apology, no explanation. Not even a message from Addison. Not even a, "Hey, sorry for the mix-up." Just silence. The kind that gets louder with every hour you wait for someone to care. On Sunday morning, I sat across from my dad at the kitchen table, in the house I grew up in. The same chair I'd painted lavender when I was 10 was still there. The same placemats. The same cracked ceramic mug that said "World's Best Grandma." Even though Nana had passed nearly a decade ago, the house hadn't changed, but something in me had. Dad flipped through his Sunday crossword, humming low under his breath like always. I stirred my coffee and waited. When I finally asked, "Did you know about the dinner being moved?" He didn't look up. He scratched in a word, 7 letters, starts with P. Then he said, "I think your mom mentioned it. That it changed nights? That I wasn't told?" Now he looked at me, but only with a shrug. "Your sister handles the group stuff now." Group stuff. I almost laughed. I was the one who organized our last Thanksgiving. I called around for Grandma's oxygen delivery. I coordinated the potluck schedule and even printed name cards. Addison brought sparkling cider and left halfway through for a Tinder date. But now she handled the group stuff. "I paid for that dinner," I said quietly. "Yeah, your mom mentioned that. Nice of you." I blinked. "That's all." He met my eyes. "What do you want me to say, Morgan?" "You've always been the one who steps up." He said it like a compliment, but it landed like an accusation. Later, I stood in the hallway, staring at a framed family photo. Thanksgiving, 2016. I was in the kitchen apron, carving the turkey. Addison had one hand on her wine glass and the other on her hip, smiling like she'd just cracked a joke. Everyone else was laughing. I looked closer. I wasn't smiling in the photo, just focused, holding it all together. That was the role, wasn't it? Not the daughter, the foundation, the fixer, the fallback plan. That evening, I logged into my email again. There it was, a confirmation from a loan aggregator service. A soft inquiry had been run against my credit. Again, it had a timestamp from 2 days before the dinner. It started showing up everywhere. That quiet unease, like walking into a room that looked the same but didn't feel right. I noticed it first when I logged into my insurance portal and saw a second vehicle listed under my name. A Jeep Grand Cherokee, silver, registered in Bardstown. I live in Lexington. I don't own a Jeep. I didn't panic. I just sat there staring at the screen, like if I looked long enough, the truth would untangle itself. It didn't. I clicked through the policy documents. The billing address wasn't mine, but the email used to sign up? 1 letter off from mine. And the emergency contact, Addison. Not a glitch, not a coincidence, a move. That same night, I poured a glass of Pinot Noir and pulled out my old planner. The one from 3 years ago, I kept tucked in the back of my bookshelf. I'd marked every transaction, every birthday, every time I sent a check to cover something. June 14th, Addison's rent shortfall. July 2nd, Dad's medication when the pharmacy claimed his card was declined. September 10th, $400 to Mom for the family reunion deposit, the one she later said never happened. And then the unspoken pattern. No one ever paid me back. Not once. They didn't even bring it up. As if generosity was just my personality trait, not a choice. As if my silence was a contract. I texted Addison that night, just one line. "Hey, do you know anything about a Jeep Grand Cherokee being insured under my name?" She replied 5 minutes later. "Chill, Morg. It's a temp thing. Jake's car broke down. just until he gets back on his feet. You weren't using that credit anyway. 3. That heart at the end. That was her signature move, buttering up the betrayal, like a poison pill wrapped in cotton candy. I stared at it for a while before locking my phone. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing didn't stutter. I was too far past shocked. I was in the territory of confirmation. They knew what they were doing. And they'd done it before. I met Melissa again, my friend in fraud litigation, this time in person, over tea at a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the courthouse. She brought her laptop. I brought a folder. I didn't want to believe it was this organized, I admitted, sliding over the documents. Melissa scanned through my notes, brows furrowing. Okay, she said. First off, this isn't petty. This isn't one mistake. This is long-term, deliberate exploitation. I gave a soft laugh, dry in my throat. So, I'm not just crazy. She looked up. You were groomed to believe you were. I blinked. She continued, voice low but firm. This is what coercive loyalty looks like in families. They build the illusion that you're essential, but only when they need something. They don't love you. They rely on you. That sentence landed like a door slamming in an empty house. I nodded once, then handed her the latest, a screenshot from a shared family Google Drive I wasn't supposed to have access to anymore. Addison had left it open on my laptop months ago during a visit. Inside, a folder named Budget Fall 2023. Inside that, a spreadsheet titled Coverages. My name appeared 7 times. Next to medical coverage backup, loan cosign, travel incidentals, and twice under emergency fallback. Not Morgan, just MA safety net in their ledger, a living line item. 2 days later, Addison stopped by my condo unannounced. She looked radiant, oversized sunglasses, a new suede jacket, carrying 2 iced lattes, like we were 25 again, and hadn't spoken in weeks. I figured you could use a pick-me-up, she said, handing me one. You've been in your head a lot lately. She didn't ask to come in. She just did. Sat on my couch, crossed her legs, sipped her drink, like nothing in the world had shifted. I saw your text, she finally said, about the car thing. Look, I should have asked, but Jake really needed help. You didn't ask, I replied evenly. You forged. She blinked, playing confusion. Don't play dumb, I said. It's not flattering anymore. There was a pause. Then her face changed. The syrupy sweetness slid off like old foundation in the heat. Well, she said, maybe if you weren't so obsessed with control, people wouldn't feel the need to go around you. There it was, the gaslight, the match to the gasoline. I took a breath. I'm not obsessed with control. I'm trying to protect what's mine. Addison stood, smoothed her jacket. It's always about what's yours, isn't it? God, Morgan, you act like everyone's out to get you. They're not, I said. They're just out to use me. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. No, I said softly. I'm finally awake. I didn't slam the door when she left. I didn't have to. The silence afterward was louder than anything either of us had said. That night, I filed a fraud alert on my credit profile and scheduled a preliminary consultation with a consumer protection attorney. Melissa had referred me to someone who specialized in intrafamilial exploitation. The word tasted strange, heavy, but not wrong. I went to bed with my legal folder on my nightstand, not because I wanted to hold on to it, but because, for once, I wanted the truth closer than the lies. Ever looked back and realized your helpfulness was someone else's entire backup plan? The email arrived just past noon on a Wednesday. Subject line, updated family trust documents. I almost deleted it, thought it was a duplicate. Then I noticed the CC line, my name nestled between legal contacts and Addison's Gmail. A clerical oversight maybe, a mistake in mass mailing. I clicked. The document loaded slowly, like it was reluctant to reveal what it held. Pages of boilerplate legalese scrolled past until I found the part that mattered. Beneficiary distribution. Addison's name appeared 7 times. Furniture, vehicles, residual funds from the lake house sale. a cash portion of my grandmother's antique jewelry collection, even the china cabinet that used to sit in my great-aunt's hallway. My name, absent. Not a single mention, not even under the sentimental holdings clause. It wasn't that I'd been left out, it was that I'd been erased. At the bottom of the page, buried under a clause about dispute resolution, sat a single sentence that turned my stomach. Any party who challenges the terms or legality of this document forfeits all future standing, financial or relational, within the Elridge estate. Relational. They weren't just cutting me off from money. They were preemptively stripping me of the right to even call it betrayal. Challenge us, and you disappear. I didn't confront anyone that day. I let it sit. Let the insult stretch out and dry under the weight of its own calculation. Instead, I pulled up a copy of my old email chain with my father's attorney from 4 years ago, when I was the one who drafted the original list of assets during his recovery. I remembered how carefully I typed it, how I had labeled the accounts, filed the tax documents, scanned the old titles to his pickup truck, and sent a neat spreadsheet outlining every heirloom by room and drawer. He'd called it a blessing, said I was so good at details. Apparently, not good enough to deserve acknowledgement. Later that evening, I got a call from my cousin Jess. We hadn't spoken in over 6 months. Since the last Christmas, I'd been asked to stay home because things were too crowded. Her voice was soft, almost anxious. "Hey, Morgan, I wanted to check on you. I heard something weird today from Grandma." I stayed silent, letting her talk. "She said you'd asked to be removed from the trust, that you didn't want anything, that you were distancing yourself for mental health reasons." I closed my eyes. "Jess," I said, "I never said that. I was never even asked." Another pause. She inhaled like she didn't want to be pulled further in. "They said you were overwhelmed, that you asked for space. I just wanted to check if that was true." My voice was even. "It's not." Another beat of silence. "Okay," she said finally. "Then I believe you." Just 4 words, but they hit harder than the legal document. I hung up and sat for a while in the quiet. So this was the strategy, not just rewriting the paperwork, but rewriting me, in whispers, in family group chats I hadn't been included in for months, in phone calls where I was painted as the girl on the verge, the unreliable one, the one with a history of taking things too personally. The next day, I stopped by Melissa's office with a printed copy of the estate update. She flipped through the pages, nodding with that same calm that always made me feel both seen and sad. "They've anticipated pushback," she said. "The clause about relational forfeiture isn't standard, it's strategic. To scare me into silence," she nodded, "or to make you seem unstable if you react." I leaned back in my chair. "It's surgical," I said. "Like they've been preparing for this, slowly pruning me out. Soft enough I wouldn't notice, legal enough I couldn't protest." Melissa didn't argue. She just marked a note in the margin. "You're not overreacting, Morgan. They've been gaslighting you on paper." The phrase stunned me. Gaslighting on paper, that's what this was. Not just emotional manipulation, but documented erasure. That weekend, I drove out to the family house in Frankfurt. Not to argue, not even to talk. I just wanted to see what they'd taken. The living room looked different. The blue armchair that used to be mine was gone. Addison always said it clashed with the updated palette. The hallway wall was freshly painted. The photo collage had been rearranged. My picture was missing. I didn't say anything, just stood in the doorway, watching as Bev flitted between the kitchen and dining room, humming softly to herself. She noticed me after a minute. "Oh, honey," she said. "Didn't know you were coming by." "I know," I said. "That's kind of the theme lately." She smiled like I'd made a joke. "Well, you know how busy it's been. Lots going on. Addison's moving in with Jake soon. We're helping with the transition." I nodded. I saw the trust update. Her hand froze on a dish towel. Then, just as quickly, she recovered. "It's what your father wanted. You know how he worries about you, your stress levels. We didn't want to burden you." "Not burdening me," I said quietly. "Just borrowing my identity, and erasing me from the will. Bev sighed, the kind of long, theatrical sigh reserved for when you want to seem both victim and saint. You always take things so personally, Morgan. This family has done nothing but support you. Support, that word again. Funny how it never meant money, but always cost me something. I left without saying goodbye. And when I got home, I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it Redacted. Inside, I placed the trust document. Then I scanned the old Easter photo where I'd been cropped out. Then the email from Jess. Then a screenshot of Addison's Instagram post from that morning. Her in front of the house, captioned, "Home is where the legacy lives." I stared at it, numb. They didn't want to just cut me out. They wanted to own the story. And for once, I wasn't going to let them. The first message came on a Tuesday morning. Aunt Lydia, just know we're praying for your clarity, sweetheart. You've been through a lot. No context, no question. Just a digital pat on the head from a woman who hadn't spoken to me since Easter 2021, when I brought a vegan casserole and got told I was trying too hard. I stared at the screen like it was a Rorschach test, waiting for some benign interpretation to emerge. But then came the second. Uncle Ron. Hope you're feeling better, kiddo. Family's here when you're ready to talk to someone. Not with someone, to someone. As if my silence was no longer quiet, but unstable. The final straw was a Facebook post. Addison's, of course. A breezy caption under a picture of her, holding a coffee mug and wearing a sweatshirt that read, "Be kind to your mind." Mental health matters. You never really know what someone's going through, especially when they start lashing out at people who've only tried to love them. 100 likes, comments filled with heart emojis, and vague affirmations. So true. You're such a light, Addie. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. Everyone knew who the post was about. I opened my email, found the thread from the estate attorney, scrolled down to where I'd asked for clarity about my removal from the trust. No reply. But oddly, there was a read receipt. Someone had opened it. That someone, I suspected, was sitting beside Addison the night she made that post. By Thursday, the pity campaign was in full force. Cousin Aaron sent me a video of a woman doing deep breathing in a field and texted, "This reminded me of you. Hope you're taking time to heal." I hadn't said a word publicly, not about the trust, not about the credit accounts, not even about the fake wellness check Addison had sent HR at my job. But they were working overtime to spin a story, a quieter one, a story where I was just fragile, sensitive, a daughter unraveling under pressure, not someone uncovering decades of manipulation. I started tracing the pattern, not with emotion, but precision. The church prayer list my mother had submitted my name to. The sudden text from Pastor James, asking if I needed pastoral support. The care package from her book club, filled with chamomile tea, unscented lotion, and a handwritten note, "We're here for your journey." Peace begins with surrender. I wasn't going crazy. I was being erased. And the scariest part? They were good at it. I took a day off work and drove 3 hours out to visit Jess, my second cousin, the one who used to stay with us during summers when her mom was on deployment. We hadn't talked in years, not since she got iced out for overstepping after questioning a $6,000 check Grandma had signed the week before her stroke. Jess greeted me at the door with no makeup, a band t-shirt, and arms that went around me before I even said a word. "You okay?" she asked, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't lie. "No," I said. "But I'm not crazy either." She poured coffee. We sat. I pulled out the binder, the same one I'd been quietly building, and laid it on her dining table. Transactions, lease agreements, the forged student loan, the estate clause. She flipped through the first 5 pages before muttering, "Jesus, they're running a con." I nodded. "Only difference between fraud and family," I said, "is that family expects you to stay quiet about it." Jess looked at me, her face unreadable. Then she said something that cracked everything open. "I remember what they did to me. I just didn't think they'd do it to you. That night, I didn't go home. We stayed up until 2 a.m. talking, really talking, about how manipulation in families doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's a casserole and a guilt trip. Sometimes it's Addison painting herself as a mental health advocate while gaslighting me out of my own story. And somewhere between the third cup of coffee and the fifth page of records, Jess reached across the table and said, "If you want to fight back, I'll help you." The next morning, I posted one thing to my private account, a black square with white text. Just because they're family doesn't mean they told the truth. Watch carefully who controls the story when you stop talking. No names, no accusations, just truth in grayscale. The messages came fast. Joni sent a heart emoji and nothing else. Jess reposted it. Addison texted me, "Really, Morgan? Drama now." And my mom called, twice, left voicemails I didn't listen to. That evening, I logged onto the estate portal and downloaded the final will. I read every clause, every line. Then I sent an email to the estate trustee. Subject: Request for official documentation review. Attached: binder scans, digital receipts, and a transcript of Addison's Facebook post. I didn't say much, just, "Please review in light of potential undue influence and exclusion under questionable mental health narratives. I am requesting formal reconsideration of beneficiary standing based on evidence provided." No emojis, no footnotes, just facts. Ever had your silence turned into someone else's story? The final conversation wasn't loud. There was no screaming match, no door slamming, no theatrical exit. It was a letter, a certified envelope delivered to the last shared address I had with them, postmarked from Asheville, signed in blue ink, and folded with care. Inside was an itemized breakdown, titled clearly at the top, "Family Invoice, Morgan Lane. For services rendered, emotional labor, financial support, silence, kept under pressure." Line by line, I listed everything. Credit cards paid down to protect Addison's score. Lease co-signing I never consented to. The emergency dental procedure Mom called in a panic about, but never paid for. Birthday dinners, vet bills, lost weekends of unpaid caretaking. No accusation, no demand, just a symbolic reminder. I remembered. At the very bottom, I added a single note: "This is not about repayment. It's about recognition. You built your life on my quiet sacrifices. This is me." Closing the ledger. I never expected them to respond, and they didn't. But a week later, I received a text from an unknown number. "Saw your invoice. Bold move. You're not wrong." It was Colby, the cousin who'd always stayed just on the edge of complicity. I didn't write back. I didn't need to. Not anymore. By the time the fall leaves swept through Asheville, my new place was filled with light. Big windows, warm-toned walls, a record player in the corner, humming something soft and slow. Nothing in it was expensive, but everything had been chosen by me. There was a photo on the mantel, not of my old family, but of a hiking trail I'd walked alone, and a note Jess had sent after the estate review closed. "You held the line. That's legacy too." The estate trustee had reviewed my submission. The evidence had been clear. Addison's manipulation, especially under the guise of mental instability, qualified as undue influence. My name wasn't reinstated in the will, but something better happened. The narrative changed. When people spoke about what happened, it wasn't in whispers anymore. It was in phrases like, "She was right to step back," or "Sometimes distance is healing." And that was enough. On a quiet Sunday morning, I clicked publish on the first post of my new blog, Unmuted, a journal of boundaries and becoming. It wasn't dramatic, no long manifesto, just a single entry about how some families are gardens and others are fires, and how learning which one you were born into can take a lifetime. A few days later, I received a message from a reader named Dana. "Thank you for writing this. I thought I was alone. I thought choosing peace meant being selfish." I wrote back, "It's not selfish to stop handing over your peace to people who only trade it for control." That message, like so many moments lately, didn't feel performative. It felt like recovery. One night, I pulled out the last box from my old life. Inside were photos, birthdays, cookouts, Christmas mornings blurred by motion. In one, I was smiling at the edge of the frame, barely visible, holding the camera so others could shine. I took that photo and quietly slid it into a manila envelope, addressed to Addison. No note, no explanation, just a picture returned to its rightful owner. Because I no longer lived in the background. I stood on the balcony later that evening, the air crisp with October wind. Below, the trees rustled in waves, like an old lullaby finally being sung for me. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. Not every story ends with fireworks or applause. Sometimes, the most powerful ending is the sound of your own feet walking away, toward yourself. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's clarity. For a long time, I thought love meant staying silent, showing up, and sacrificing even when it hurt. But real love, real family, should never come at the cost of your identity. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever had to choose peace over being the good one, know this: you are not alone and you are not wrong. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to protect your peace? Drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. And if this story touched something in you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Your story matters too.